Good morning, guys. It's your girl Phoenix Rain / Amarachi Udunwa, and this is my first episode of Straight Talk with Phoenix. I know you see me with my cup of coffee, but this is not actually coffee and conversations. It just happens to be morning, and I have a cup of coffee every morning. But this is Straight Talk. Okay, so we're going to have some real conversation this morning, all right? We're going to talk about 3 countries, the Gambia, Nigeria, and Benin Republic, okay? Before we get into the particulars of each individual country, I want to tell you what brought me here meaning this topic, and the way I'm going to discuss it, okay? And that is something that I experienced from being a part of a certain group in the Gambia. Those who initially sort of landed in the Gambia and began their YouTube channels and things like that, everybody was very much, in love, in awe of being on the motherland, very much looking through new eyes. And of course, when you're new to a place, you see all of the good, some experience, some not so good. But the phenomenon specifically on YouTube that I witnessed and very much didn't like was that people weren't really allowed to tell the truth. Okay? If anyone said anything even slightly negative, they were literally bashed and talked down on and accused of being a hater of the country and speaking negatively. They were, by some people, even told, if you don't like it there, leave. Where have we heard that before? And they weren't allowed to express any concerns, any cares, or anything that might be slightly off. A couple of years later, when negative things started happening, people were getting unalived. Negative things were happening. All of a sudden, then, here come all the other people who were making their channels on drama and all of these things. They came and then accused all of the people that moved there, the supposed diaspora, and asking, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell anybody? Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you speak up? How, Sway? How, Sway? And the first thing I thought was, you didn't allow us. You didn't want to hear the truth. What's that movie? You can't handle the truth. Nobody wanted to hear anything but good, lovey, right? And so a lot of people came without proper information and found themselves in harm's way. So I've decided that we're going to talk about the great things about the places that I've been. I can only speak about the places that I've been. And we're going to talk about the things that were not so great, but from my perspective. This is key. From my perspective, okay? This is my experience, my perspective, what I have personally experienced and or personally witnessed, not hearsay. Please watch this video all the way to the end. Please subscribe to the channel. There's a lot coming here. So put a pin in this. At the end, we're going to address your own needs and how you should know yourself in evaluating a place. Okay, so let's talk about the Gambia. The Gambia is a developing country, meaning that that country is very new. It's still actually developing. It's infrastructure. There is a lot that is not yet there. I can't put that necessarily in a negative light, because it's just like anything starting new. You have to develop it, right? And they're in the process of doing that. However, you have to know where you are in your stage of life. If you are at a stage in your life where you're in chill mode, you are retired, you aren't really pressed about working or business or things like that, the Gambia is a great country to go to. It's a chill vibe. It's mostly pretty tolerant. There are some things on the ground that people experience that aren't so tolerant. But I'm going to also put that in the framework of something I've always said since any of you guys have known me, and that is that humans are human all over the world. That means for those of us who think that you're going to run from the discrimination that exists in America and you won't find any in the Gambia or any other African country, you are wrong. Let me say that for you guys again. Humans are human everywhere around the world. That means that jealousy exists, envy exists. Yes, there actually are Gambians who are criminals. That's not most of them. In fact, most Gambians are wonderful, kind, loving people. I certainly had a whole friend group, even sort of adopted as family group that embraced me, helped me, taught me how to live in the Gambia well before I met my husband, who's not Gambian, okay? So, none of this video is about bashing anybody or speaking negatively about anybody. It's about straight talk, right? I want you to know that it's not all peaches and cream, no matter where you go, right? The same is true in the United States. Let me fix this right now. So do not, you hear me? Do not come on this video talking about I said this or if you don't want to, whatever, because I'm going to block you, okay? Because what we're going to do here in this particular segment, every time I release a straight talk segment, what we're going to do is we're going to deal in truth, because people need to be able to make informed decisions. When you are embarking on something as big as departing your home country for a completely different country, different culture, different environment, different standards, all of these things, you need to have as much information as possible so that you can make an informed decision. You understand? One of the things that I personally experienced that was a huge negative to me and to a lot of people as we arrived in the Gambia was misinformation or lack of information. And that had absolutely nothing to do with Gambians. It had everything to do with the people who were putting out the information. I would have packed completely differently had I known. Instead of bringing 4 suitcases of clothes because I knew I wasn't going to return, I would have left all them clothes because I could easily get clothes in the Gambia. I didn't know. I would have packed my power banks. I would have packed my backup chargers. I would have packed completely differently if I understood the needs. So let's get into it. Because the Gambia is a developing country, there are infrastructure needs that are still developing. NAWEC is the power company. The power for the Gambia is basically supplied by two ships that sit off the coast of Gambia. Anybody that's ever been to the coast of Banjul, you can see the ships. You see the power ships sitting off the coast, right? There are times when that power goes down. It goes out frequently, okay? And so you will have hours in the day when the power is not working. As I said earlier, if you are in a phase of your life where you're retired, you're in chill mode, you've stacked up, your reserves of finances, and you do not need to work and you do not need to run business, then the power issue may not really be an issue for you, because what most Gambians do when the power goes down is they take a break. They don't freak out. They're not in panic mode because the power goes down. And this has become a part of their understanding of their life there, right? So typically somebody will go outside and sit under the tree and start making a tire. They'll pass out, that's the tea. They will pass out tea, they'll make tea, they'll take a nap, any different thing, but they don't stress over the power going out, okay? And so if you're in a phase of your life where you can just chill during those times, then the power grid going down will likely not be an issue for you, okay? The next thing about the Gambia is that the roads are in really poor condition in most places. Now, I'm going to give a caveat to that, because the latter part of 2023, when I left the Gambia, the big highway project was still under development. Segments of it were open. It's now completed. I've seen some of the pictures and the drone footage. It's absolutely beautiful. There are some of the main roads, and they're working. There's I believe a 20-year plan for the roads in the Gambia. So as I said, it's a developing country. Growth is happening, right? But you have to be willing to grow with it, right? You have to be willing to grow with it. So when I say most of the roads are not in good condition, I'm talking about not the main roads, because like the highways and things like that, you can go from Combo to Farafeni and on a highway. Okay, so there are highways, there are main roads that are fine in the Gambia, but the side roads, the neighborhood streets, most of them are still unpaved. There is not any drainage system. One of the things that they have not done so well as the country has begun to develop is they have not included drainage systems there. So if you know anything about the Gambia, or if you don't, Gambia has a very distinct rainy season, which means you've got about 8 to 9 months of dry weather. It does not rain. When it stops raining in the Gambia, it stops raining. You're not going to get any rain. So when it stops late September, early October-ish is when the rainy season ends. It's dry all the way around until the end of May. Sometime in June is when the rainy season begins. So June, July, August, September is typically the rainy season, and you will get heavy rains during this time. And it's a problem because there's no drainage system. So everything floods, your household floods, the building codes, there's not the same standards of building that we have there, though it's beginning to change. So you will find that the windows seep, the walls will get mold. We had to move out of a place during the rainy season because the place was so poorly insulated that when the rainy season came, the house really became overtaken with mold. I have asthma and I could not breathe. I literally went into respiratory distress in the house because of the mold, and we had to leave. One thing about renting in on the continent, because I have found this to be true in multiple countries, even in talking to people in countries that I haven't been to. When you rent a place on the continent, you rent it, baby. That means you got it. Part and parcel, you got it. You got the problems, you got all the things. The landlord is usually not going to come and fix things. It's up to you to maintain it until you leave, all right? So unless you're gonna completely paint the place and refurbish the place, renovate the place, all of that, and you can do that to your standards, but they're not gonna give you any money back or anything like that. You do it for your comfort, and when you leave, so for instance, we rented a place where the people who lived there before us had equipped the place with all the fans and the ACs and all that stuff for their own comfort. When they got ready to leave, they took all of that stuff out. They wanted to recoup some of their money, so they sold it. We wanted a little bit of comfort, so we purchased some of those things from them and had them reinstalled. You understand? So this is the Gambia. Now, in terms of the people in the Gambia, y'all see this big old smile on my face? I mean, welcoming, caring, generally and genuinely nice people. Gambia is a predominantly Muslim country. There are Christians there and there are churches there. It's a relatively tolerant place, meaning nobody's going to discriminate against you because you're a Christian. Nobody's going to stop you from your faith practice, but they exist side by side, right? And you have a respect for each other. So when it is time for prayer, when you hear the call to prayer going out, you have to know that you're not going to get certain things accomplished. If you're doing business or if you need to go to the bank or that sort of thing, you adjust your time of how you do things, because it is a Muslim country and there is prayer 5 times a day, and you have to get used to that. You have to know that. You also, for instance, I worked in a place where there was a mosque nearby, and when the call to prayer came, the place, the stairwells and all of that stuff got filled with the men coming for prayer, which meant if I wanted to go out and have lunch at that midday time, I needed to either get out of the building before call to prayer or wait until prayer was finished, because it's extremely the height of disrespect to walk across the area where they're having prayer. You do not do that. Okay? And so these are the things, the cultural things that you learn to adjust to. They're not bad things, okay? It's just different. And so I would advise you to understand the place, know the place, right? If you want to go to the Gambia, then make sure you have ample devices for your backup power. Get plenty of extra cords. Make sure you get things like voltage regulators. I had several devices get burned out because of power surges. Okay? When the power goes out and it comes back on, or sometimes frequently throughout the day, you'll get power surges and it can blow your American devices out. Most of Africa, or all of Africa, I believe, is on 220 and we're on 110. So you have to have what's called a step down so that you don't burn out your devices. If you plug your 110 devices into 220 plugs, they'll start up initially and then they won't start no more. No more. They will not. They'll burn out because it's too much power. So you have to plug in a step down, and then if you're wise, you plug in a stabilizer to keep the voltage from surging, and then you plug in your devices. So here's also a couple of other things that I didn't record, but I thought were very important for you to know. The official language of the Gambia is English, so you don't have to worry about learning a new language necessarily. However, the 2 main traditional languages are Wolof and Mandinka. Wolof is very easy to learn. Mandinka, a little bit more challenging, but it would serve you well to learn at least one or both of those languages if you're going to stay permanently in the Gambia. You also need to have extra backup of your original cords. If, like me, you work on an Apple device or something like that, you want to stock up on Apple, all of your peripheral devices, your Apple mouse, your Apple cords, your original cords, because you're not going to find many original cords there in the Gambia. You will find some. There are some reputable places in the Gambia that sell original accessories. The thing is that they're going to be expensive. Anything that is original or branded, as far as devices, or even, I mean, it applies to coffee. It applies to branded foods. Anything that is an original branded product, because of everything being imported, is going to be much, much more expensive. So it's best if you know in advance and you stock up and make a nice bundle for yourself so that you have some lead time should you have any problem with anything and you need to have something sent to yourself, or if you just want to go and purchase it, on the local economy, but you have to know that it's going to cost far more. Okay, one other little touchy subject that I want to just address a little bit, because you need to know and be prepared for it, is that you're going to be bombarded simply because you are American. That's not just for the women, it also happens to the men. There is this fascination and belief that Americans are rich, and comparatively we would have a lot more than the average Gambian, where the median income is equivalent to approximately $80 to $100 a month or less. Okay. And so you have to understand it, but you also have to know that sometimes gives you a bit of a culture shock. You have to be a bit on guard, because you will be overpriced for things, because simply people believe that you have the extra money. When you transition from dealing with everything in American dollars and really start living and operating on the Dalasi, even with it being a better value for your dollar, once you start living on the economy, you start feeling the actual cost of things. And so you have to really mind your money. It's a cash-based society. You will spend through your money very quickly if you're not aware. Someone will profess their love and be ready to marry you in a week. And I'm dead serious, because they want access to America. And so you have to be aware of that. I'm not saying that real love doesn't happen. It absolutely does. But in the midst of that, there is a whole other dynamic to that side of things that doesn't always feel good. And you need to be prepared for it and know how to deal with it. Okay, so these are some of the challenges. But again, I want to say that Gambia is a very laid back place. It's very beautiful. If I were to rank the Gambia from my perspective, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give Gambia an 8, right? And why an 8 and not a perfect 10 is because of the challenges with power and some of the challenges with shipping and mail, receiving mail in and out. It's challenging. Okay. And I would also say that navigating the roads has been a problem, but because it's developing, let me change that. Let's give Gambia an 8.5. Okay. We're going to give it an 8.5. Because the roads are developing, things are getting better, it's improving. It's a relatively new country if you gauge it towards the lifespan of other countries around the world. It's a new country. They gained their independence less than 60 years ago. And so because it's new, it's still developing, but it's doing pretty well. Now, there was a heavy influx of foreigners coming in to the Gambia, and with the current state of the presidency and that sort of thing, there has been a rise in crime. And the police force in the Gambia is, well, I'm just going to say ill-equipped. The police force in the Gambia is not at all what we know as a police force. Now, I'm not saying that they should have the police that we have, because I don't like the police. You heard me. However, in terms of having the things they need, the police force in general in the Gambia, they don't have vehicles. They don't have certain things that allow them to really operate from a standpoint of authority. And so that presents a bit of a challenge. Also, in terms of infrastructure, being able to just pick up the phone and reach the police also is a challenge. Okay? So if something is happening to you and you're in distress, it can be a problem in the Gambia because it's developing. So for those reasons, I'm going to stick with my 8.5 rating of the Gambia, but I will tell you that I have some wonderful, wonderful Gambian friends who have become more than friends. I consider them family, my sisters, and I would just say that you have to know yourself and what your needs are, okay? The last reason that Gambia gets a high mark from me is because of how easy it is to obtain the visa. The visa on arrival process is extremely easy. Gambia gets about 20% or more of its national revenue from tourism. So they make it very, very easy for you to travel, to arrive in and stay in the Gambia. The visa on arrival process is smooth and it's very cost efficient. In fact, it's less costly than getting your visa in America. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this segment on the Gambia. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be Nigeria. Thank you for joining me for Straight Talk, and thank you for subscribing to Needles and Nourishment Udunwa Style.